Travis Kelce and Michelle Beadle have joined the group of people who are figuring out a way to be upset and or criticize Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker who went to a Catholic college and said Catholic things. Michelle Beadle, the former ESPN broadcaster, is someone that I have a bit of a history with. Travis Kelce, Kansas City Chiefs tight end, one of the greatest Kansas City Chiefs players of all time. Obviously, I worked in Kansas City for a long time and made my bones as a sports writer in Kansas City, followed Travis's entire career. How did we get here that a Catholic man speaking to Catholic kids, promoting family values, has become so controversial that people spend a week, 10 days, reacting to it and criticizing it and distancing themselves from it? I've been making the argument for more than a decade that social media destroys the human mind, that Twitter in particular destroys common sense conversations, that Twitter becomes a stage. And what do people do on a stage? They perform. It's the most inauthentic act in the world. And so there are those of us that believe that Elon Musk has improved Twitter, that this is better than the Jack Dorsey Twitter and the Northern California completely controlled Twitter. I'm not so sure. As long as there is a stage and as long as everyone has access to the stage, people are going to perform and become very inauthentic. I'm going to try to tie all these things together today to give you a better understanding of just like, how did we get here to where there's so much BS being spewed by high-profile people with a following? How did we get here? We got here because we fell in love with the dopamine high of Twitter and other social media apps, and we're all performing. Social media just baits inauthenticity. It baits lies. It baits outrage. We'll discuss that today on Fearless. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining me. Awesome show planned for you today. Steve, Kim, Shamika, Michelle are going to join me as I unpack a few of these discussions. Today, we're going to have a tight show. I'm going to do this show in an hour. I'm guaranteeing it. We got some special weekend content for you. We'll have some content on Monday for you on Memorial Day. So we got you covered the entire weekend. I want to thank Good Ranchers. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Use my promo code FEARLESS at goodranchers.com. And with your subscription, you can claim free American Wagyu burgers for a year, a $400 value, and you get the additional pleasure of supporting veterans this Memorial Day season. Thank you guys for joining me. Make sure on Apple you're helping us fight the algorithms by giving us that 5-star rating. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're hitting the likes and the subscription button. Make sure you're commenting and participating in the show. I want to start here. If you have not seen Michelle Beadle, former ESPN broadcaster, NBC broadcaster, she's important because I want to use her as an example of what social media and radical feminism and the radical feminism promoted on social media, what it can do to a human being. I'm going to lump Travis Kelce in on this as well. Here's a big football player that's headed to the Hall of Fame, and he's been turned into a wimp. And he's acting like Harrison Butker, a kicker on the Chiefs football team, has said something outrageous and outlandish by suggesting that Catholic women might find more joy and fulfillment in motherhood rather than sitting inside of a cubicle working for some corporate overlord. Oh, God, I just can't believe it. And let me distance myself from it, but let me back into this and start with Travis Kelce. I think his comments just came out on their New Heights podcast in the last 24 hours. Let's play Travis Kelce distancing himself from a kicker who's more bold and honest and masculine than Travis Kelce. Play the clip.
Comes down to his views and what he said at the St. Benedict's commencement speech. Those are his. I can't say I agree with the majority of it or just about any of it outside of just him loving his family and his kids. And I don't think that I should judge him by his views, especially his religious views of how to go about life. That's just not who I am. I think I grew up in a beautiful upbringing of different social classes, different religions, different races and ethnicities in Cleveland Heights. And that's why I love Cleveland Heights for what it was. It showed me a broad spectrum or just a broad view of a lot of different walks of life. And I appreciated every single one of those people for different reasons. And I never once had to feel like I needed to judge them based off of their beliefs.
Yeah.
My household, my mother and my father both provided for our family. And both my mother and my father made home what it was. So they were homemakers and they were providers, and they were unbelievable at being present every single day in my life.
No doubt.
And I think that was a beautiful upbringing for me. Now, I don't think everyone should do it the way that my parents did, but I certainly and sure as hell thank my parents and love my parents for being able to provide and making sure that that home was what it was, because I'm not the same person without both of them being who they were in my life.
So Travis Kelce said a whole lot of nothing there because he has virtually no self-awareness. And that's not a personal attack on Travis Kelce. It's really an attack on the great wealth and fame and attention and adoration we pour on athletes. He has no reason to be self-aware. He thinks that, he's here and he's famous and he's rich and he's super successful because both of his parents worked outside the home. Or he doesn't recognize, because Travis Kelce is a knucklehead. If you followed his career as closely as I have he's probably been in the league 10 to 12 years, maybe a little bit longer. He's a knucklehead. If he were not 6'5", if he were not 255 pounds, he would not be a rich and successful person that anybody cared about, in my view. He would be a dumb jock who was short, 5'11". He were normal size. The average height of a American man, I believe, is 5'10". 6'2" and above, that's like 12% of the population. Travis Kelce has athletic privilege. He hit the genetics lottery. Now he's rich and famous. Now he gets to pretend like he has some sort of mature, sophisticated perspective on the world. He does not. He can't even, again, because of the social media pressure, and he's thinking about how these words will land on social media, he has to take Harrison Butker out of context. Harrison Butker did not say women should not work outside the home. Harrison Butker just insinuated, or not insinuated, he told young women at St. Benedictine College, a Catholic college, that the Catholic faith leads him to believe and teaches him that the greatest fulfillment for a woman is being a mother. That's her purpose. Be a helpmeet for a man, be a mother to many children. That's where the greatest fulfillment comes from. He's not teaching or saying anything that women that go to a Catholic college haven't already heard. But I don't want to spend too much time on Travis Kelce. I want to focus most of my attention on Michelle Beadle because I think it's sad what I've seen happen to Michelle Beadle over the course of her career, and I attribute a lot of it to social media. Let's play the clip of Michelle Beadle attacking Harrison Butker.
As a woman, I think everything he said was garbage. I think when you hide hateful thoughts and feelings and bigotry behind the quote unquote cloak of religion, I tend to roll my eyes and stop listening. But I think the fact that there were women in that audience that were not okay. I mean, granted, there were some that clearly were, but there were also some that weren't, who have come out since and been like, what the hell, dude? We just worked our asses off for years. And you're going to come in here and tell us that's all cute and stuff, but what you're really going to want to do is get married and have babies. Then you'll feel important. Like, go yourself.
And I can't believe people thought we would get political on this one.
And by the way, it's also my freedom of speech to say, go yourself, Harrison Butker. That's my freedom. I can do that. I'm not going to lose my job. And he should also have the right.
Here's what I find sad about what Beadle just said. I used to really like Michelle Beadle. I used to love her energy, her spirit. She was, in my view, a relatively happy person. And her persona, this angry person that she's become, this bitter and confused person that she's become, that's not who she was 12, 13, 14 years ago. And I blame social media for doing this to her. And so I'm going to start with something that won't put me in the best light, but I just want to be transparent. I believe it's in 2011. I think I'm at Fox Sports, but I had this running joke on Twitter that I was going to return to ESPN. And this is a very secular version of Jason Whitlock, the version that I keep repenting and talking about like, man, I was a bad man. That's who you're about to see. But it was one of the funniest gags. I'm just keeping it real because there is this comedic side of me. There's a Richard Pryor side of me that I feel like I have under control now, but I did not then. And I love to crack inappropriate jokes. Just ask Jeremy Lin, just ask anybody. So I had this running joke on Twitter that I was going to return to ESPN to do a show on ESPN Adult called Blacktopped. And I would put out this poster, this billboard over Twitter. ESPN Adult, Blacktopped, featuring Hannah Montana, Hannah Storm, Big Sexy, Jason Whitlock, and Beetlejuice, Michelle Beadle. And if you see in the bottom corner, it says the sponsor is Trojan Maxim XL. It's hilarious. This is a different version of me, but it was a running joke that I had. And maybe a year later, after this running joke, I kept talking about I'm coming back, because I think this poster says maybe it debuts April 1, 2012 on April Fool's Day. But at some point in 2012, I interviewed Michelle Beadle on my podcast then called Real Talk. It was very popular. People enjoyed it. It was a different version. It wasn't the fearless version of Jason Whitlock. I was still fearless, but I was fearless for stupidity. And I interviewed Michelle Beadle, and we ended up talking about this show, Blacktopped. And I want to show the sense of humor and the self-deprecation and not taking herself so seriously. This version of Michelle Beadle, I enjoyed, I liked. She's in her mid-early 30s. She's very attractive at the time. She has a good spirit about her. I want to read you some of the excerpts. This is me saying to her, because I can't get the actual audio, but a woman named Justine Brown, who I knew at the time, She did a full transcript of the interview. And this is me saying, all right, did you catch my shtick when I was saying we were doing a television show together, Blacktop? Michelle's response, oh yeah, did you realize how many people thought you were serious? Me, yes, I did. And I hate to even talk about it being fake because I don't want to blow it for those people. But my God, America. Michelle then says, they're checking the DVR going, why isn't this recording? Can you imagine though? I mean, we'd have to be on like HBO Showtime, one of those. I say, I did it because I assumed that you could handle any joke and you wouldn't be offended. So I was right. Michelle responds, oh, absolutely. It takes honestly, at this point, I don't even know what offends me. It takes a lot. I feel like you've heard everything at a certain point and you can't take any of it too seriously. I thought it was funny. Why were people offended? This is the Michelle Beadle I knew and liked back then. I respond. Some people were like, oh my God, that's so sexist. You're objectifying these women, blah, blah, blah. But listen, I didn't say this over Twitter. I'm going to say it on the podcast. There is an ESPN sports anchor who bought it and who contacted me and congratulated me on the show. Michelle responds, shut your mouth. I say, and I'm about to reveal his name. Anyway, I go on it's Stan Verrett. Stan Verrett, who still works for ESPN, he thought I was going to be doing a show on ESPN Adult with Hannah Storm and Michelle Beadle called Blacktop. It just blew my mind. I got to tell you, my buddy, and I admit this later in the question, my buddy, my lifelong friend, my childhood friend, Jeff George, he sent me a note congratulating me on the show. So my sarcasm and humor, but Michelle Beadle got it. And as you said, she can't be offended. I'm making a joke that objectifies women, but she can't be offended at that time. So how do you go from that in 2012, that you can crack those jokes, and then turn around in 2024 and Harrison Butker going to a Catholic college and espousing Catholic views to a group of Catholics is go F yourself? How did you become that angry? And I mention that because I am not immune to the problems that impacted Michelle Beadle. She's now close to 50. I believe she's still unmarried. She has no kids. She's a very angry person. And social media did that. It turned her woke. She started performing for social media. She had to change her entire worldview. She had to limit her sense of humor, her self-deprecation, her willingness to be tolerant of people with other views because social media demands that. And then when you tack on the fact that, again, I believe she's 48, not married, no kids, she's bitter. And so you're probably listening to this show and say, Jason, you're 57, not married, no kids. Couldn't someone call you bitter? I'm self-aware. You hear me talk on this show constantly. Man, I screwed that up. Man, because if you go listen to the podcast I did with Michelle Beadle or any of the Real Talk deal, I was so off into the promiscuous, secular world and just so off into stupidity that, yes, I did not prioritize family and kids. And I come on this show and tell people, don't make that mistake. Trust me, it's the most important thing you can do. Michelle Beadle still lives in that world of denial, where she's telling Harrison Butker is giving women and men the greatest advice an adult can give young people. And Michelle Beadle, because she's taken on the performance of social media and been wrapped in that world and thinking for so long about how's this going to land on social media? Am I in alignment with what social media will reward? Am I in alignment with the feminist movement? She's screaming, go F yourself, to a man that has done nothing to her. This is sad. This is a tragedy. But this is what social media does to people. It's to lesser degrees or in different ways, it's done it to all of us. Jemele Hill, white people have bent over backwards, ushering Jemele Hill to a successful journalism career. But because she's on social media, and her shtick on social media is all white people are racist and I'm a victim, she can't acknowledge all the opportunities that white folks at the Detroit Free Press, white folks at the Orlando Sentinel, white folks at ESPN, all gave her. Not really qualified for any of it. Sat in a microwave and just given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Can't acknowledge it. Must pretend like the whole world is set against her and black people. This is the curse of social media. Elon Musk has helped, but he has not fixed the problem at Twitter. And maybe I'm judging him and what can be accomplished at Twitter over the course of, he's owned it for a little more than a year. Maybe it's going to be a longer process, but we need a place. And we have to either have the right point of view about X or Twitter or any of these social media apps. They're all hostile to a Christian point of view, all of them, to this day. Has Twitter or X improved? Yes, it has, but it's still very hostile. And it still baits people. If you want engagement, if you want to increase your followers, the best route is still to be hostile towards a biblical worldview. And the best route is to turn bitter and nasty and a lack of self-awareness, no growth, no evolution. I'm telling you, I really liked Michelle Beadle. Wonderful spirit, fun. She was, everybody in the sports world was like, oh, that's who I'd like to watch a game with and drink a beer. And then how did she get here? 48, angry, nasty, and just overwhelmed by bitterness. Social media played a role in that. She was not always this way. It's sad. I want to play one other clip. Stan Van Gundy talking about Harrison Butker. I don't believe this is the authentic Stan Van Gundy, the former NBA coach. Now he's a broadcaster. How does a coach get this woke? How does someone he's a knowledgeable person. How he understands the history of sports. He knows that sports have a long history of a connection with religious faith. He knows that the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association, organized sports. He knows that. He understands, or he should understand, the roots of sports. And so if you understand that, there's just no way you could be this kind of angry with Harrison Butker. Play SOT number 2.
We are also all, though, entitled to say that we stand against everything that he stood for. And I thought it was amusing coming from him with the women's role and the whole thing. And his mom is this accomplished scientist and everything else, who was clearly working outside of the home the entire time he was growing up. So I don't know if he resents his mom and how he was raised. I don't understand any of that. I don't agree with anything he said. I think it's backwards. I think it's misogynistic.
It was homophobic and anti-Semitic as well.
Well, I mean, listen, the homophobic stuff, there's no excuse for whatsoever. And listen, one of the things that has annoyed me for a long time is that if you cloak bigotry in as part of your religious beliefs, then that's supposed to be okay. You know, like when there were supposedly Christian people that didn't think that black people should be living with white people, that black people shouldn't be able to marry white people, as long as you said, well, hey, it's God's belief. And, you know, there's a part of conservative Christianity that doesn't think women should have leadership positions, and they go in and quote scripture and all that. Listen, to me, I don't care where your beliefs come from. Bigotry is bigotry. And saying, well, that's my religious beliefs, well, fine, then your religion's bigoted.
Incredible statements. And I does he know the history of sports? Would he have the career that he's had? Would he be as wealthy? Would he have the opportunities that he has now if not for the Young Men's Christian Association organizing sports worldwide? That's in the history books. Secular atheists did not organize sports. The Catholic Youth Association or the Catholic Youth League, see, why do I keep screwing this up? The CY, they led the integration of sports. That they were the driving force integrating sports, which directly led to the integration of America. Do these people remotely understand the history of America and sports, the things that have made them rich and famous? This is a love the fruit, hate the tree situation. It's they all want to benefit from the fruit of Christianity, but then they want to demonize it. Stan Van Gundy's acting as if that Bible wasn't used to free people, to justify the Civil War, to justify the end of slavery, to justify the end of Jim Crow and segregation. What world are they living in? The eugenics crowd, the secular elite, Marxists, they started Planned Parenthood. They wanted to purify races. They constructed abortion and Planned Parenthood as a way to get rid of black people. These are facts. Margaret Sanger. These are facts. Deny all that history. But we live in a world where no one goes to any depth for information. They go to Instagram, they go to Twitter, they go to Facebook and get a kernel of truth, a kernel of distorted truth. And then they justify their worldview based off those kernels that are passed out over social media. And demonize people that actually have a much longer view, a much more substantive view, a much deeper understanding of how we actually got here. I would love to have Stan Van Gundy on. I'd love to have Michelle Beadle on. I feel sympathy for Michelle Beadle because I really do think at one time, it's a great young woman that, deserved to be married and have kids. And if she were married and had kids, she'd have a lot less animosity and bitterness. And she wouldn't, let's say she's an atheist, but she's married with kids. She wouldn't really care. She wouldn't have time to worry about what a Catholic man told a bunch of Catholic students at their graduation. He wasn't talking to Michelle Beadle. I'm going to bring in Steve Kim into this conversation, and Shamika Michelle will cover some other things. Before we do that, guys, I want to talk about preborn. You guys know that's part of our worldview here at Fearless that life begins at conception. No organization supports that worldview better than Preborn. That's why I'm so honored to be partnered with Preborn, and I'm so honored that they've jumped on board with Roll Call. They're the primary sponsors of Roll Call. I hope you guys are planning to be at Roll Call on Saturday, June 1st. We're just a week away. But thank you, Preborn. Thank you, Dan Steiner. We know so much about this organization, where the money goes, how it's spent. It's not wasted on high-end executives. It's spent paying for ultrasounds for young women who are considering abortion. Once they meet that baby in the womb, heartbeat, image, they're twice as likely to choose life. That's when Preborn steps in, steps up, and not only takes care of that baby inside the womb, but the first 2 years outside the womb. Preborn is there with food and diapers and anything that woman needs through the first 2 years of that baby's life outside of the womb. There's two ways to give to Preborn. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby. Or you can give the way I prefer to give, preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. Stick around. Steve Kim next. There are voices and songs crying out for men to live up to their biblical responsibilities, to correct a corrupt and broken culture. We can no longer afford to ignore the tug on the heart that all good men hear and feel. We have lost our way, and we know it. You can see it in the eyes and actions of scared, frustrated, and confused children. Free speech, it's under attack. The meritocracy, it's been scrapped in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Identity politics separates us by color. As we step further and further away from our identity in Christ, Satan steals the innocence of children. Join me. We need courage, not perfection. John Rich.
You're the benefactor of the fact that the founding fathers recognized that's where your inalienable rights come from.
Glenn Beck.
You are the leaders of freedom and liberty in the world.
Mark Robinson.
Ain't but two genders.
Pastor E.W. Jackson.
But I owe my identity not to my race. I owe my identity to the Lord Jesus Christ.
And members of the Fearless Army in Nashville on Saturday, June 1st for Roll Call 2.0. Visit fearlessarmyrollcall.com to reserve your spot at the Men's Summit that will restore your faith and your resolve to fight. Making sure you have the fruits and vegetables in your diet is important for maintaining a healthy diet, but it can also be difficult, especially if you're busy. The average person doesn't even eat half the recommended servings in a day. That's a huge gap in nutrition, and inflation has seriously increased the cost of fruits and vegetables. That's why I use and recommend Balance of Nature. It provides the on-the-go solution that many of us need to make sure we're getting all the proprietary blends and supplements. 31 fruits and vegetables come in easy-to-swallow capsules, or you can just get a scoop of it like I like to do right out of my little canister, put it in some water, smells good, tastes good, and I'm covered for the day. I've gotten everything I need, 31 different kinds of produce in a single day. That's what you're getting with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies. When you go to balanceofnature.com, you'll get 35% off plus $10 off any additional sets with your first order as a preferred customer by using my discount code FEARLESS. That's limited to 5 sets, but you'll save a ton of money while getting the fruits and vegetables you need in your diet. Go to balanceofnature.com and use the promo code FEARLESS for 35% off. That's balanceofnature.com. Thank you, Balance of Nature. I needed this. Thank you.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you up here below so fly
Steve, your thoughts on Michelle Beadle? I'm telling you, 10, 12 years ago, I loved Michelle Beadle. I thought she was great. She was, she's someone you'd want to have a beer with, watch sports with, one of the most likable personalities, I think, at ESPN. and then she just became an angry feminist and blew herself and everything out of the water.
You know, as I looked at that clip that you guys sent me, I'm getting Chelsea Handler vibes. Aren't you? She's like the Chelsea Handler of sports. I mean, there was a time that she was this bright, radiant, ultra attractive. No matter what political side you were on, she was pretty palatable. And now that it's all dried up like the Sahara, it's just, wow, a beer with her. Yeah, I said it. That's what we do here. And then, you know,
you're on a run, man. You are on a run.
I am on a run. Call me Usain Bolt, okay? But the thing is, once she started to get a little angry, and then she started to jump the shark when she said stuff like, well, I'm not watching football. And I'm like, really? You're on the #1 network in America, and you're not going to watch America's, if not pastime, our passion. And then those decisions probably led to her downfall, because the bottom line is, if you're going to do shows like that and you're not talking the National Football League, you have no place on that roster. And now she's bitter about it. And look, I respect her right to cuss out Harrison Butker. She's allowed to have her First Amendment right, just as he is allowed to have his. But I look at her, and it's a sad, sad decline.
You know, yesterday after the hating A Shaniquas, and now you say it's all dried up, man. Holy cow. You're just courting danger.
What?
But see, what do you think of my take that social media actually baits a lot of these women to go the path that Michelle Beadle went? Because I think without social media, I don't think she's this sort of angry.
No, there's no doubt. And look, once you have, this is the thing that I see with a lot of personalities. They have a persona, they have a set of given beliefs, and whether they know it or not, they have taken a side on a political street. Okay? They're either leftist or rightist, Republican or Democrat. So here's the issue. Once you start drawing those hard lines, you're almost under a lot of pressure to endorse certain things or come out against them. In other words, you have to say things along party lines. But I don't understand it. I do understand it. I don't get it, and I don't like it. But with Michelle Beadle, I think she has to come to this realization that when you are a female, and I'm going to say something very uncomfortable here, men can get gray and old, and it's called having gravitas and becoming more seasoned. And more or less, you can get away with not being at your peak physical attractiveness. For women, in the immortal words of the late, great Kevin Samuels, God rest his soul, up top, that wall is the 72 Dolphins, man. It's Rocky Marciano. It is undefeated in a lot of ways. And if you hit it hard and you don't have like that substance, I can see why you get a little bitter and angry at your lot in life and your career.
What do you think of Stan Van Gundy? He won't draft Harrison Butker on his fantasy football team in pro. And I know part of that is just shtick, but Stan Van Gundy being this kind of woke blows my mind, because it's my understanding Jeff Van Gundy isn't nearly as woke as his brother.
Well, I've noticed this about Stan for a while, that he has gone this way, which again, that's his right. But I think a lot of it was pandering, or at least that's what I thought, because he was in the NBA circles. He was still coaching a lot longer than his brother was, or at least a lot more recently. So he had to kind of say certain things to stay in favor of the players. He had to be the cool Gundy or Van Gundy. But I have a question, though. Okay, so you're not going to draft Butker in the 18th round of your fantasy draft. But in the first round, if you had a chance to draft Tyreek Hill, who's one of the most prodigious fantasy players in the world from what I've read — I don't play, I just looked it up — would he draft Tyreek Hill, though, within the first draft? If you're going to make these moral and ethical draft choices based on your personal beliefs, how far does that go?
Not very far. Steve, Angel Reese deleted a tweet. She did another attack on Caitlin Clark. Then she backed off. The Caitlin Clark hate, jealousy is unrelenting. Angel Reese's brand is built on it. They win a game, the Chicago Sky, and she tweets out, and that's on getting a win in a packed area. She meant arena, not just cause of one player on our charter flight, Skytown. Your thoughts on Hayton A. Shaniqua Angel Reese?
Hayton Shaniqua. What did I tell you? Hayton Shaniqua. You can hate the nickname all you want, people. It sticks. The reality is this. I want to say this again. If it was not for the CNC shot-making factory, okay, you guys would be back on Spirit. And in fact, the only endorsement deal that any of these ladies could get would be on Spirit Airlines. Could you imagine that commercial with Angel Reese? Spirit Airlines, we have a fighting spirit. Or how about this? Frontier Airlines, the fighting frontier. Give me a look. This is the reality. And Angel Reese is playing pretty well from what I've read on Twitter. I don't have the season package like you, Whitlock.
3 of 10, I think, the other night, but go ahead.
All right. Well, she's a grinder. She's like a Charles Oakley type with extensions and eyelashes. Yeah. I get it. She's, I don't understand the anger. The anger should not be at white America and Jason Whitlock for suddenly showing interest in women's basketball because of the Mayo princess. She's not the problem. The anger from these Shaniquas should be at everybody else who supposedly of their skin folk and maybe not their kinfolk that haven't supported them for 25 years. That again, we are talking about a league in the WNBA, I believe was founded in 1997, that has always been largely black, right? And it has not had the foreign influx like the NBA. So when you think of what is really a black league, more than the National Football League, more than the NBA, the WNBA is really like black league, right? Okay. So why haven't you supported it then? The people that you are now trying to rile up and form this lynch mob against Caitlin Clark. But again, it's the philosophy of grievance, as Thomas Sowell says.
Finally, Steve, I want to circle back to a topic we did a couple of days ago. Stephen A's docuseries up for debate, his docuseries on Sports TV. It's concluded 3 episodes. I found this fascinating because I think we covered this on Tuesday. And Dan Le Batard on Thursday is questioning, in my view, inauthentically, whether or not he was even in the documentary. How do you not know on Thursday? The thing came out on Monday or Tuesday. But let's play this clip of Le Batard pretending like he was left out of this documentary.
The thing that I wanted to talk about that I just saw on my television, because I don't want to make an accusation here without having all of my facts. But I just saw that on ESPN, Stephen A. Smith and First Take are promoting that Stephen A. Smith and his company have executive produced on ESPN Plus the history of sports media, a 3-part documentary about argument television and the evolution of sports media. And I think I was cut out of it.
Of course.
I'm not totally sure. I sat down with their team for about 90 minutes, and I don't know if I was cut out of it. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I remember that the interview wasn't great between me and them, where I wasn't giving them exactly what they wanted. I did not know exactly what they wanted, but I'm an opposing viewpoint on what debate television has done in general, corrosively, to how it is the athlete is covered and how cruel some coverage is. But I legitimately don't know if I ended up on the cutting room floor or not, and how should I feel if I was on the cutting room floor. Do you guys have interest in what it is that this is, which is just the history of sports debate television?
Damn, we're worried.
But I'm more interested, like, that part is interesting if I could get the insult of just being others, but I want to be able to kick and scream about the fact that my viewpoint was simply cut out of a documentary that I spent 90 minutes interviewing on, but I haven't seen it and don't know if I can make the accusation.
So Dan Le Batard is ripping Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless for ruining sports journalism while sitting on a show saying, hey, I'm not even going to take the 3 minutes it would take to look this up and find out whether or not I was in the documentary, because I think he's in episode 1, he's in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the deal. So I'm not going to do the tiny bit of work it would take because I actually need some clicks and views. And so I'm going to pretend like, hey, I'm a victim here. I got cut out of this documentary. This is why I controlled opposition. This whole thing is a plant and a scam. Le Batard knows exactly what his role was in that documentary, and it's there to pretend like he's the opposition. He's the real critic of Stephen A. Smith. I find it laughable.
Well, I'm going to rip and actually defend Le Batard here on certain things. The unmitigated gall to think, well, I spent 90 minutes. Yeah, that's right. You're a panelist. I've done shows like that, preview shows on boxing events and certain fights. And it's very disappointing to me when I see these end productions where I've sat there for 45 minutes and they only use me for about a minute or 30 seconds. And I truly believe I'm so enlightening and intelligent and entertaining, I would have given myself at least a half hour. But guess what? I volunteered to do it, and I have no control over the production. And nowadays, Jason, because of that and the fact that my time is not just valuable, but to me it's invaluable, I just don't do them anymore. I really don't, unless you're going to pay me and I get compensated for my time, maybe a little gas money, bring me a ham sandwich. I'm not doing it anymore because the bottom line is it's not a paid gig. And I'm not taking all that time to be left out, as he said, on the cutting room floor. But that's the deal that I made, so I can't complain about it. But as you mentioned, Jason, he was literally in the opening montage of that show. In fact, it set up episode 1 when he was on a split screen with Flavor A. Smith accusing each other of ruining sports talk radio when I thought it was syphilis and gonorrhea arguing about which guy's the worst venereal disease. Give me a damn break. Neither of you guys are really a credit to this whole profession. But here's the other thing. Dan, how do you know you said something so great that just needed to be in there? It's about the whole history of this genre of sports talk and debate. They interviewed a lot of other people that meant a lot more to this, believe it or not, than you. One of them, and by the way, and I know it's a conflict of interest because he produced it, I would say on the hierarchy of what is important in that field, Stephen A. Smith is much more influential than Dan Le Batard. That's the reality. So, Dan, you decided to do it. Get your ego out of the way. That's the breaks.
Steve Kim is completely on fire. He's now called Stephen A. Smith and Dan Le Batard syphilis and gonorrhea. You've had a heck of a week, Steve. I'm going to let you end on that note.
Yeah, the gray's coming in.
I'm going to let you end on that note.
It's the gray hair. It's affecting my membrane. Within a month, it's going to be right now it's the 38th parallel. I can still see it. But you know what, people? Get off me. It's a transition phase. But anyway, everyone, have a great weekend.
Yeah, Steve's at that point in life where you just don't care what anybody thinks, so you'll say anything. He's like your 80-year-old uncle or 80-year-old father. Before we get to Shamika Michelle, guys, if you like this show, you're going to love the merchandise we have for the show. Go to shopblazemedia.com today, and you can check out everything from our Fearless Army t-shirts, hats, and dog tags to our God, Country, and Truth Bomb shirts, and a whole lot more. And of course, there's all the other Blaze Media merchandise right there at your fingertips. Everything from Blaze Heritage and Blaze Media collections, jackets, t-shirts, hoodies, socks, mugs. There's so much there you have to love. Go to Blaze Media or go to shopblazemedia.com today. Check out my merchandise as well as everything else available from the Blaze. And be sure you use my promo code JASON10 to get 10% off your entire order. That's shopblazemedia.com, promo code JASON10 for 10% off. Do it today. Shamika Michelle, next.
That's very funny.
If someone said, Jason, that just for men you're using to bleach your hair, I don't know if that would trigger me.
Yeah, no play for Mr. Gray.
Defend your species.
Well, I can't. Someone called it the Gettysburg Address.
It said, look good, feel good, play good, you pay good.
And I have to agree. I think they all should have been removed, muzzled, and sent to the kitchen to make a sandwich.
So you make daddy a sandwich.
This was...
That's good. 4 score and... All right, I couldn't let today end. I couldn't let the week end without showing you probably one of the funniest things I've seen in recent times. I've watched this clip a million times. I got to get Shamika's take on it. There was a young man named Tavares on Wheel of Fortune this week, Shamika. I want to play you Tavares. Trying to solve the puzzle and actually telling on himself. Let's watch Tavares.
Tavares, right in the butt?
What?
No. Blake.
This is the best.
Yeah, that's it.
I love the woman yelling, what? I love that. That would be a natural reaction. Right in the butt, Shamika. What was Tavares trying to tell us there?
Look, I hate coming after Steve Kim because now I'm about to be hating ass Shamika. I think what this man did was he kicked the door down from the inside of the closet. I'm hoping he's gay because if he's not, after this, he is. What was he thinking? What was on his mind that he would say this? The words didn't even fit. So this was the funniest thing that I have seen in a long time, but it was super gay. I hope he didn't have to go home to a woman because my door would have been locked, bolted, and chained.
The new me is going to avoid cracking some jokes, here that I would love to crack, but thank you, God, for holding me accountable for what I say here. But he said right in the butt, and the first, it's 4 letters. And so if he had said bite in the butt, I would have gotten it. I just don't know how he got there. And it's just a window into his soul, a window into what's in his heart and head, that he's sitting there on Wheel of Fortune. Maybe he's looking at, is Vanna White still on the show or did they replace her? And maybe he's thinking about Vanna White. I don't know what that was, but there's been some incredible moments on Wheel of Fortune, and that may take the cake.
Yeah, I think that's the top one for me that I can remember or recall off the top of my head. That is the top. And to me, if he was thinking about Vanna, maybe he should have said white in the butt. I don't know. But that right in the butt for me, unless you are some type of doctor or nurse, I don't understand. And I think maybe his mind was elsewhere. I have no excuse for this. I can't wait until he comes out with the statement if he does. But he is super famous now. I will always remember Tavares because now don't name any of my grandkids that. I stay away from that name. If I meet a man whose name is Tavares, I'm I'm all for him. It's like what my uncle said, never date a man who wears flip-flops. Never trust a man that's willing to have some material going between his toes. It's just certain things that always remain.
Shamika, thank you. That's a good way to go into the weekend. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow. Those of you that want to hear me engage with a Catholic apologist, you'll love my conversation tomorrow with Timothy Gordon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be.